morning. I hope you had a good week. This is Jonathan Shatke, and this is the weekly rant for March 28th, 2020. This is, of course, my son, Kenneth. Well, this week has seen an actual bit of political horse trading and the passage of a stimulus package for $2 trillion of bonuses, mostly corporate and pork bailout stuff, but it's going to be a mess. So, is it going to help? No, of course not, because all the money that they're promising isn't going to. Yes, you enjoy listening to loon calls. There's quite a few loons in the world. Let's listen to that wail of a loon again.
No, let's not stop.
And so all the corporate bailout.
Stop talking.
Stop it! No, I'm talking to the people.
Stop talking.
No, and you do. So if we don't have actual production, there's no sense giving people money to buy stuff. All they'll do is buy up and increase the demand for products which aren't being supplied. Once the supply is there, of course, the demand will be met. But the government is causing a lot of this problem by preventing price gouging. Price gouging is a reaction to demand, and as such, it's important for the market to function. When you remove the ability to price gouge, you end up with shortages, and it doesn't matter what the shortage is in: toilet paper, bottled water, whatever, because the price in a crisis for something should go up to meet the demand, while the supply has not corrected. Coca-Cola, if they were able to charge 50% more for a bottle of water, would bottle a bunch more. They'd run overtime. They'd run their shifts. They'd run 3 shifts. They'd do everything that they possibly could to increase their production of the bottled water. The same thing with Nestle and PepsiCo. They know how to make money with their bottling equipment, and they know that if that the same bottling equipment can bottle pure water or Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew or whatever, but if the water is in demand, they will bottle that. But they have to be incentivized to do that, and that's what price gouging allows them to do. They get to charge if there's a demand. If they suddenly get orders for 500 million bottles of water, well, they aren't going to prioritize that unless they know that they can charge extra for those bottles of water. And then they'd prioritize it. And it wouldn't even take very much rise in price of a bottle of water for them to be incentivized to do that. So it's by preventing this market mechanism from matching supply and demand that we get the problem. The same thing with medical devices or medicines or anything. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. By preventing the incentivization of price gouging, you are causing the problem. So government is causing this problem. Government caused the problem in the first place. It's pretty clear that the coronavirus that we're dealing with right now. Chinese AIDS flu is a government created problem, not just because the Chinese government tried to hide the fact that it was happening, prevented World Health Organization people from getting in and seeing what was happening, prevented to this day proper accounting of who's died. 21 million people in China have canceled their cell phones, have failed to continue to update their cell phones plans. Now, that could be an economic problem, but it's most likely a problem of significant death. If if 21 million people were dying, China would have a reason to close down their two-thirds of their economy for 2 months. For 3,000, no, China wouldn't even notice 3,000 people. They had more births than that in the last 2 months. Um, we're being lied to by China. That's clear. But the thing is, we're also being lied to by the American CDC. Um, they say, this is not so bad because 30,000 people a year die from the flu. Well, that's not true. Um, we know for a fact the American Lung Association has the data of how many people have confirmed cases of flu and died of it, and it's less than 1,000 a year. Um, where does the American uh, where does the CDC get their information? Well, they could blame half of the pneumonia deaths on flu with no basis in fact. One can survey the viral load of a cadaver. It's not hard. It can be done. One can survey the antibody load of the cadaver's white blood cells. It can be done. Um, so their estimates are, not only not based on fact, but not based on facts that they could easily acquire if they wished. Um, so, what do we see in Italy? A huge death toll. Now, I want to know personally what the demographics of that is. Not only ages, but races. Are is this hitting the Muslim population more because of their sanitation habits? Is it hitting? Of course, it's hitting the old people more because, of course, old people are sick more often than young people. Their bodies have a weaker immune system, so they're going to die quicker. Um, so you've got a number of factors, and right now we're getting out pretty accurate tests in bulk, and somebody needs to take 1,000 of those tests and survey uh, a gross population. Just take random uh, sampling of a gross population and see what the penetration of this virus into the gross population is at this point. It is in the wild. It was never contained, and the penetration into the gross population will give us an idea of the serious infection rate uh, and the death rate. And that until we've got that, we don't know how dangerous this really is. Right now, my feeling is it is penetrated about 10% into the gross population, and in America, that's 30 million cases of mild or asymptomatic CV-19. Um, and we might see 6 or 8 thousand deaths from that, and which is a lot more than the flu kills, but isn't a end of the world scenario. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Um, the Trump administration tried to pull out of Afghanistan during all this, and tried to do a peace deal. And I don't know whether the breaking of that um, 1 week long attempt at an armistice was moronic uh, Muslims or deep state actors uh, trying to prevent their gravy train from failing. It's hard to tell. Um, the CIA is deeply corrupt and has been for decades, at least since the Vietnam conflict. Um, the CIA was running heroin during from Vietnam. They were running cocaine from Central America. They are the source of uh, 40 to 50% of the drugs on American streets, of the hard drugs. You do this in order to fund their off-budget wet work. Um, when because Congress has typically tried to control on budgets the wet work uh, much more closely, and so um, yeah, completely out of control. Um, the thing is, destroying the CIA is a difficult task. Um, anyway, the solution to this is not stimulus but freedom. The stimulus giving money, well, it'll empty warehouses, um, and that's maybe a good thing. A lot of the stuff in the warehouses is useless, um, produced for the wrong reasons by the wrong by uh, and with no market, and um, the stuff that's useless is just going to sit there. It'll empty the warehouses of the stuff that is useful, but manipu- without moving the supply side by um, the price mechanism, it's not going to solve anything. Um, it does have this crisis does have the advantage of showing why it is fatal to trust long supply chains and uh, manufacturing that's far away, controlled by uh, psychopathic governments. Uh, China is psychopathic. They murdered 50 million of their own people in the Great Leap Forward. Uh, they, uh, time and again, have repressed even the simplest of free speech requests. Um, they have uh, taken Orwell's Big Brother uh, to extremes, and that's been in full force this during this crisis, where they've literally known where every person in their country has gone through accessing the database of video that's uh, with um, face recognition. It's it's horrific to see this in action, and they've been completely draconian, and nobody's given them shit for it to speak of. So anyway, peace and joy while you deal with this on your own terms. Um, don't be afraid. We don't know actual danger of this virus. So take care of yourselves, plan ahead as usual, and maybe someday we can bring sanity. If you vote for me, Chatkeep 2020, I will be, if I would be your president, and I would solve things because I wouldn't do these things.